So as you can imagine, usually I'm wearing much more, sporty clothes, and now I'm in smart casual, so I kind of feel like I'm cosplaying my other identity. But still, I always try to pick clothes I can, still fight in case, like you never know. Can you tell me how many of you ever been in a kung fu fight before? Can you raise your hands? So, see, not everybody was kung fu fighting. A few years ago, I found myself in Hong Kong. I lived there for 8 years. I was teaching English because that was the only job I could get. I got my master's and my bachelor in education. And as a social educator, I couldn't really get a job in Hong Kong, but I could teach English as a foreigner. And so I was working this job in a small, tiny room without windows. And I was living in this like really small apartment, a flat divided into few rooms. If I sit down and lean my back against the wall, I could touch the other wall with my feet. The flat was divided into rooms illegally. There was no kitchen. My housemates were cooking in the bathroom. But there was a little park. I always came to the park to practice, to train my Kung Fu. That was something that was holding me, that was holding everything together for me when things were bad. So there is something that came out of my PhD research, and it's very much what I also experienced that I would like to talk about today. Well, do you know that in 2024 there was quite shocking research that came with the finding that 60% of working adults experience burnout. That's a crazy number. It seems that even though we are successful, we have important jobs, titles, we make lots of money, we have good grades at school, still it's not always the same as being happy. It seems that being high-functioning, competent, is not always the same as feeling that there is a meaning in our life, that we have a purpose, that we have some kind of identity, coherence. And that's a big topic for well-being. So I want to come today with the question whether martial arts can help here. For sure, not for all the people, but for some, it can be a very important helping hand. I am going to talk about a concept called a lighthouse that came out of my research, and I hope that will be quite interesting for you. So let me introduce myself. My name is Veronica. I'm from the Czech Republic, but I have been living in Thailand for the past 4 years, before 8 years in Hong Kong. I got my PhD in sports psychology in Hong Kong, my bachelor and master's in education, and I have been also training martial arts since 1999. I have been working at the university after I have done my research with mixed methods. I'm more like a qualitative person. Phenomenological analysis is my big love. But I had to do some quantitative too, because, had to be academic enough for some of the people in the university. And so I was working at the university, but then I decided that a logical step after this for my career was this. And so I moved to Thailand to work on my professional career as an MMA fighter. I actually turned professional when I was 36, and that's what I'm doing now. And this year I'm coming back to academia because I still have some things to share and to talk about. And I am teaching Kung Fu to people who think. So my brand is called Kung Fu Academic. I have an online coaching program called Kung Fu Scholars. I share not only the training there of Kung Fu, mobility and strength and conditioning, but also some theoretical concepts, modules, of different tools, against anxiety, how to work with motivation for just daily life, but also because often people coming to me already have some kind of problems that they are trying to, help with through martial arts. So let's start with defining what is martial arts, because this crowd is, it seems, not fighting very often. So what I will be talking about is traditional martial arts. So we have quite a huge spectrum of styles in there. It can be Tai Chi. I'm sure you have heard of that. We can have Wing Chun there. We can have Karate. traditional karate. We can have lots of different styles, but what is important for us, not only that there is some type of self-defense and fighting, of course, that is the core, the movement, but also that there is some kind of spiritual development, some kind of philosophies, some kind of breath exercises, some kind of spirit and mind development. And then also there is some kind of tradition, such as, our style comes from China from 700, years before and so on. And then routines, some kind of drills and so on. But what is important is that in traditional martial arts, we have this connection with mind and body. It's not only about the movement. When we look at the well-being research and martial arts, we know that martial arts has a significant positive effect on well-being and also a moderating effect on reducing some mental health problems such as anxiety. We have three main tiers of research when it comes to well-being and martial arts. The first one is researching constructs such as well-being, resilience, self-efficacy. The second one is mindfulness and mind and body integration. And then the third one is mental health outcomes such as depression, anxiety, and so on. So looking at well-being, I'm using mostly this construct where we have core elements of well-being: the positive emotion, engagement, relationship, accomplishment, and meaning. And we know that growth-oriented values in people are connected positively with well-being. There are some researches that I would like to introduce to you, and I am happy that just one person raised their hand actually, so maybe you have never heard of these before. So the first one is connection with martial arts and verbal psychotherapy, where it's being said that martial arts is a safe space for people when they can come, they can experience who they are or who they thought they are not. They can explore self, they can vent, they can become more loud when they were shy and quiet. Or they can become more calm when they are too maybe aggressive or too having problems with their energy. The second one is comparing judo and verbal therapies, especially on the theme of learning how to adapt, how not to go against the energy in both life and in training, but how to go with, how to adapt. The third one is that martial arts include a strict code of behavior, which is a very good tool for self-regulation. There are always some structures, some rules that you have to follow that gives you some kind of maintenance where you can move around. And then the last one is one I particularly like. It's about how actually embodied action help us bridge identities. So it brings people together through their bodies. One of my interviewee in my qualitative part of my research, he forgot that he is white. He was living in China with the family of his Kung Fu master, a Chinese family, and he told me, so I was walking on the streets and then suddenly I saw people are looking at me weird. I was like, what's wrong with me? And then he was like, oh yeah, I forgot, I'm actually not Chinese. And I was like, how is that possible that you forgot you are not Chinese in China? I was like, I don't know, it's just, I just live with these people here. I feel like we are the same. There is no difference between us. So let me come to this particular topic, the lighthouse. This is not how I call it. This is how one of my interviewees called it, name it. But it's also a theme that has been emerging across 300 pages of interview transcript. Several people mentioned this, they never met. One of the interviewees said, and for the other thing than training as well, even in Ireland, I've got a good job, I'm quite successful, I have good education. I think it comes from the Kung Fu. So the lighthouse, or I can also call it the inner compass, is a routine. It's some kind of meaning in life, some kind of pathway or structure that gives people the direction of what is wrong, what is good, what they should do and what they shouldn't, how they should decide, when they come to crossroads in their life. One of them said, "It's like a solid rock in my life. For example, my mother died, and in this period afterward, the training was there and it's unconditional. Although the training is very strict, behind this is very important. You are expected to be there. It's my system." It was the system of support of my interviewee, that he was there, that he was training, just like for me when I was going through hard time, that I was having something mine. It was also said, I quote, "It's like a solid rock in a storm. Everything may fall apart, but I have this that will keep things together." Another quote, different person, "My background was very rough, and Kung Fu kept me like a straight arrow. It was rough, and everywhere it gets rough, you have gangsters, a lot of drugs. It's always sensible to stay away from drugs. I have never done them. I have never socialized with anyone who did them. And that's part of Kung Fu as well, to appreciate yourself, to keep yourself healthy. Kung Fu definitely helped me to see what's good, what's right, and what should I do from a model aspect. Without Kung Fu, I would have a different life." So you see, these people, they were not trying to become Kung Fu practitioners for their career. It was not something they were trying to pursue, as their main role, but it still somehow affected everything else in their life. When we look at it from the identity point of view, we see identity as something dynamic that is shaped how we talked to ourselves and about ourselves over the time. It's a dynamic narrative, but it can be activated by context, shape what people pay attention to and what they see as important. So, for example, as a martial artist, I may find important that I will journal and work on my mind, and then I will go to ice bath, for example, because the identity of martial artists come to my mind, and it's coherent with myself. And we know already that the grow values are positively associated with the level of well-being. Now, we know what the compass is, but this is also how we can use that. So, when we talk about burnout, we know sometimes we just try to give 100% all the time. When we are burnout, we have 0% to give, right? So sometimes you are between 100 and 0. You will be surprised how much that is a topic in training too. And then you can take the same topic from the body and put it into your life. For example, there are times in the year where you will be tired, where you can only train a little bit. And then there are times when you can give your all. And that's just natural cycle, Same. Martial arts teach you that sometimes you have to rest, sometimes you have to go. If you're fighting, you have to learn how to rest, even though you are in the fight. And when you have the opportunity, to know how to attack. So you are learning how to switch, how to be able to do both. Just like the research about the judo practitioners, how they learn how to go with the energy and not against, how to adapt. So we also talk about this animal thing in martial arts. Very often we have animal terms to describe techniques, but we also use it to think of something we can switch on and off. So I become an animal, I become aggressive, I become assertive, I become someone who goes for what I want. But at the same time, you learn how to be that person who learns how to rest, how to be round, how to be someone who is more adaptable. One of my interviewees said, "I changed my attitude, maybe not that much of how I think about myself, but about me and the environment. It's not about the self-understanding, getting into my head, but Tai Chi changed the way I adjust to the environment that I am in. It makes it smoother as I took obstacles out of the way." And another one said, "I am more rounded, less extreme, maybe smoother, but sometimes it's better not to be smooth. I control my temper much better. I could get angry very easily until now. The only person who can eliminate me is myself." So they talk about this ability to turn their animal on and off. To ability to be able to be active or to be someone who is more adaptable. So what I'm trying to say here is that martial arts, of course, the main goal is that you can defend yourself, that you can fight, but it's not the only goal. The second goal, or maybe for many people, the much more life-saving goal, is to rebuild their inner compass, to build them as human beings. The inner compass is person's embodied sense of orientation that links their identity, attention, action toward what feels meaningful and coherent. And meaning and direction are core to well-being. So if we look at these parts of the lighthouse or the inner compass, we can connect them with that part you cannot see for some reason. And that is the theory of identity, meaning, and well-being. Okay, that went quite well. Thank you so much.
That's because it was within. You couldn't see it because you had to look within. All right, questions?
Thank you, Dr. Veronica. That was a fantastic thing. As somebody who has spent most of my life involved in the martial arts, what I have found is that there's a lot of lip service paid to the spiritual aspect, but what I want to know is, does your practice set aside a specific practice for spirituality as part of? Because in my experience, aside from sweeping out a dojo and sitting in seisa, we don't actually touch that part, which is the motivating factor of the martial arts. And I want to know if your practice somehow incorporates more time and a more coherent framework for spirituality around practice of the martial arts.
We just came out of the spirituality and psychology conference. I was being smarty. Go ahead.
So I will answer it next year in the right kind of content. Thank you for your question. That's quite a complex topic. So for the style that I teach and that I train, which is Hungar, but I can even say like for MMA, because it's not that you just fight with people, but there's always this like spiritual layer. But it's not like we would sit down and say let's be spiritual now. So there's the briefing, but also like the way how you talk to, how you behave, or the relationship you have with yourself and with other, this kind of like a code of behavior and so on. But for me specifically, I feel like it's quite difficult for people, especially when they are not coming from Asia, to bridge, to understand those like meaning in the martial arts. So I have this like specific like theoretical module where I teach. It's more on the like mental health side, but definitely. You always, touching the layers of spirituality or self-development somehow.
Next question. It's like an embodiment.
Would you think that you could extrapolate your research to other sports as well? Because I think if someone is a long-distance runner or practices team sport or whatever, that they do feel quite happy and well as well because they have a meaning. Mm-hmm. Could that be? Or?
Thank you so much. Definitely. So I haven't really done research in like sports in general outside of martial arts, but for what I was reading, there definitely is a lot of meaning or self-development in sports. So there is this theory of empty bottle. When we take something and we empty the values and we put the values in it that are important for us. For example, if someone comes and they are from Europe and they're like, okay, Chinese martial arts is the thing for me, then they will perceive the values, even though they are coming from, for example, Buddhism, they will not perceive as same the way that Chinese people would do or Japanese. but they would, use the values that are in like their own. So there is always this kind of like layer of like what you put in. For martial arts, I would say there is still, there are some topics that are not in other movement cultures, such as the pressure that actually you have to deal with violence. You have to like awaken your own violence, even if I say it like this ugly. In others, so that may be quite unique. But for some instance, I would definitely say so, yes.
Next question.
Excellent talk, Dr. Veronica. I'd like you to elaborate just on how teaching as well as practicing martial arts has helped you personally, and what are the ways it has made you grow as a person.
That's a beautiful question. Thank you so much. Well, always people ask me, so like, what motivates you to train and so on? I cannot really tell because my identity is so much intact with martial arts. I have been training since I was 11. I guess my main motivation was to become a Jedi. It didn't work, so the second option was a Shaolin monk. So like, kind of, it's working. But for me, I would say every big decision in my life I did was somehow affected by martial arts. And my personality as well. So it's what brought me to Hong Kong, and Hong Kong really changed me as a person. It's what brought me to Thailand. It's what brought me to here. Because of that, I'm meeting you. So for me, it's really what really gives me that path. And I am not, I'm a professional fighter, but apart from that, I'm not a professional kung fu person, So this is not my role, I would say, in the society. But this is still something that gives me, even if I would not be teaching, that would give me still the decisions I would make and the people I would meet and what I would do with my body and what I would do with my mind.
One more question. We have time for one more.
Dr. Veronica, this is awesome. There's something that you said that really resonated. You said finding rest in the fight, and I wanted you to speak more about how that contributes to sustainable intensity and kind of resilience against burnout.
Okay, so if I use the example from like really physical kind of scenario, let's say you are in a fight, you are in a clinch, you are getting hit, but you still have to be able to think calm, hear what your coach is saying and try like save the situation. So you are really learning how to be calm under pressure, like physical pressure, being hurt, you cannot breathe, you are feeling very chaotic, you are panicking. So that does really help in real life. So like suddenly emails that don't feel so dangerous anymore, and definitely you learn that you cannot only be 100 and 0, but you need to find some balance between that, and that resting is not a full language, but you really need to give yourself some space. And so this is some of the things I'm going through with my clients when they come in very motivated, and then suddenly after a few weeks they're like, oh, I haven't done anything. They are really like ashamed to talk about it to me, and I'm like, well, that's all right, because we always have up and downs, and you have the cycles, and it's never 0 or 100. So I guess I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Can you give one physical example how someone would rest in a fight?
Sorry, someone what?
Would rest.
Rest?
Fighting. Right.
Physical example? Okay.
Not necessarily, I mean, he knows kung fu, I put him up. He can go. But like walk us through an example.
Okay, understand. So let's say, I'm fighting MMA, right? So that happens in a cage. It sounds ugly, but it's for safety reason, because if you are fighting in a ring, you can fall down because there are just ropes. So cage is actually safe for you. So let's say that you are stuck on the cage and someone is like pushing into you and want to take you down. So you are really exhausted just standing there, trying not to like lose your balance, and the person is hitting you at the same time. So in your face or in your liver, it's very painful. You cannot breathe. You cannot really see well, maybe. So that's the time when you have to get control over yourself and really tell yourself, breathe. Okay, now it's the time to breathe. Now is the time to rest. Okay, now I can go again.
I love that. All right, let's give it up for Dr. Brown.